Indigo is the 7th level within the wealth spectrum, and it is the first step into the alchemy prism. So whereas the foundation prism is about our personal flow, and whereas the enterprise prism is around market flow, now we're up to global flow. Now we're talking about how all the markets get put together almost like a matrix based on what happens at the alchemy prism. So we're into the domain of the governments of the world, of those who are actually creating our tax systems, printing our currencies that we're all using. So we actually start with the indigo because the indigo is the trustee of the theatre, trustee as opposed to the composer or the performer who are in the theatre. So someone who is now the market maker as opposed to in the market at indigo level as a trustee is the likes of the billionaires in the world, and we've mentioned a few of them in the past. The ones I mentioned with wealth profiling, where we talk about a creator being like Richard Branson or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, or someone like Oprah Winfrey as a star, someone like George Soros as a trader, Warren Buffett as an accumulator. These are all people who are at the indigo level. Some of them actually moved a little bit past, which I'll get to in a moment. But indigo as trustee means that they can make money just off the trust people have in their track record and in their brand. So how does someone get to indigo? Well, they can get to indigo through 3 ways, and these 3 steps that they take combined create the solidity in their trust, which ensures that others will continue to be listening to what they have to say. And the first step in terms of getting there is trumping your trust, which means that they've got a vehicle of some sort, or they've got a brand of some sort that others will put weight within. And that's the same for all of them, whether it's their partners, whether it's their customers, whether it's their investors. Someone like Warren Buffett would do that with Berkshire Hathaway. Someone like Donald Trump does that on his brand himself. Someone like Oprah Winfrey does that in Harpo Productions. Someone like George Soros does that around the advice that he gives. And the media will always report on this. But I want to say something else about this as well. When you trump your trust, there's a double-edged sword in this, because there are going to be many people actually watching this video at the moment who aren't even at indigo level, but they're watching it because they're interested in what indigos are. In the same way that the media will report on all sorts of celebrities or people that stand for something based on the fact that other people want to know. Which means that not only the ones who support you will be there creating their identity from being connected to you, but those who are your critics will also create their identity by criticizing you. Which is why everyone who's at indigo level have got a different set of problems to someone who's down at yellow level. So yellow, for example, is someone who on the one hand has got their time freedom, but on the other hand still has to keep on doing the things where they're relying on themselves. But they're below the radar, which means they're not going to get a lot of bad press even if they do bad things. Whereas someone who is at the indigo level, even if they haven't done bad things, they're going to get bad press anyway. Because there's going to be people who see them as a symbol, and as a result, they're going to be already saying negative things about them, and it's going to show up on the internet, and it's going to show up in the press. In fact, whereas at blue level, you can always go and Google someone at blue and they're going to have negative things about them. When you go up to indigo level, the press themselves are creating stories which can be negative about them as well. The cost goes further. Someone at indigo level will always have a cost in their privacy, and they'll always have a cost in terms of their security. I have met some amazing indigo people in my time, and I haven't met a single one who doesn't have their own security around them, because there are people out there who feel so strongly about what they symbolize that they would actually want to do something about it. So there's a cost. And as I share more about indigo, you might decide it's not a level you want to get to. But I'm also going to share how you go to one step further up, so that you can see how going to the violet level, which is not the trustee that is the one who owns the theater, but is now the composer who actually creates the music that can be played in any theater. Why some people are willing to take this step, because of what they can do for the future of ourselves, our humanity, and our planet. 3 steps. Number 1, trump your trust. You would have done that if you're at indigo level. Number 2, capitalize your currency. You would have found ways that you can just print money off your brand or off your enterprises, and whether that's doing another listing of another company you have, whether that's doing an offering which is secondary to any public offering that you had and raising more money that way, whether it's the way that banks are queuing up to give you money as a result of your track record. These are all things which means that you never have to be concerned about the money side of things. But your ability to print more also makes you more responsible to say, where is this moving and how will I move it in that direction? And the third aspect is connecting your community, is that you have a community and a group, just as you have a group that are against you, you have a group that always is going to be for you as well. And that's a group that you would, of course, be focused at as you are. So those 3 steps get you to indigo, allow you to stay at indigo, where you're above the markets, but you're still allowing yourself to be connected to that market by the way you create it and evolve it. And that's where the billionaires sit, because that's the only way to get to the billions. You can't do it just by waiting for your properties to appreciate, but you can by being able to print your own money through your own equity. But to be able to move one step further, to get right up to violet and being the composer, Well, I'll give you an example first of this happening, two examples of this happening before I then share the first of the three steps. One example is someone that I met, Muhammad Yunus, who got a Nobel Peace Prize for his work with microfinancing. And he had been at the green level running Grameen Bank. He then got to the blue level where he had multiple businesses. And when he got the Nobel Peace Prize, he then got lifted up to become a symbol and to become the representative for all microfinancing. And now all of a sudden he's out there speaking all the time around the world about microfinancing, and his word started carrying weight, in that it was reported on and people would be starting to criticize it and agree with it in some ways and not in others. And when I met up with him, he had already taken one step further. He says, okay, this is all fine and good for me to be the representative for what I stand for, but I'm going to step one step up, which is compose a new future. And he came off a book called Social Business, and he started looking at a whole new way that we can do business, we can make a big difference in the world. That's what happens at composer level. You're actually composing something new and different. Poverty can only be solved at the composer level. Environmental issues, or issues around our healthcare, or issues around how we go about treating our education system, can only be solved at the composition level. And some of us are trying to be composers when we're still at yellow level. It won't work. It will only work if we already have a body of trust around us to allow ourselves to then step up to the next level, as someone like Al Gore has, or someone like Bill Clinton has, or someone like Bill Gates has. That's another example I'd like to give you of someone who's at trustee level, where he could easily make more money if he wanted to, but it's no longer about the money. It's about how he can now redirect all of that trust towards something which is going to make a difference for the future. At composer level, the very first step, and I'm not going to go through all three right now, but I'll go for the first one. The first step is to ratify your right, which means get voted into whatever it is that you believe most about. You can't just say, I'm going to be the composer, and think other people are going to follow you. That happened with Muhammad Yunus with his Nobel Peace Prize. That happened with Bill Gates, with the different partnerships and people who came his way and said, we'd like to work with the Gates Foundation now. It's what happened with others like Nelson Mandela, and what happened with others like your current government in your country, where they were all voted in. One of the challenges is that because ratify your right is something that anyone can get involved in, we often will elect in governments who will then be the composers of our economic systems, and they never prove themselves to be good composers. Maybe good performers, maybe good at being able to become a good politician, but now we put them in a position where we complain when they don't get our tax system right, or we don't get the currency balances right. Well, what do we expect when we create a system which is now voting in people to be our composers, when in fact we could do something quite different? And that's something which is what really this whole spectrum is about. You have a part to play in it, I have a part to play in it, but also at the same time we have that ability to see that this spectrum allows us to earn the right up to indigo level if we choose, within our circle. And then from there, become a composer for a better way. And if you take these simple steps up, I think that you'll agree that with me in the future, we are going to have some incredible compositions. We are seeing this already online. We're seeing companies like Facebook who are already creating new compositions and new currencies that we're going to be working with. We're seeing companies like Skype, where we actually have a whole new way of working now in terms of how much we're willing to pay for an overseas call and how quickly we want to access other people, where even governments can't keep up. So in the future, we're going to see change makers who are going to be the ones who are going to be driving our entire future and the future of our children. And this all comes from the spectrum. And you have a part to play in that as well. What part you play? Well, that's your choice. So I hope you choose wisely.